So all the abstract, the bio, you guys have seen all that stuff. I'm David Cobb. This is me. This is what I'm doing. I've got this for you. Here you go. You want that there?
No, I'm good.
Okay. The topic is PowerShell in Azure. And thank you guys for coming. It's cool to see a big full room of people. I'm very informal. I love questions, tangents. If it's really a big tangent, I might say let's talk later. But I want to hear from you. I want to keep this very interactive because we're looking at code a lot. I don't want to put you to sleep. I want to keep you interested and engaged. So the code is there for you to look through as we're going through this. The goal is not for you just to sit and listen. You should be able to connect to your own Azure account and use this code to learn. You should be able to extend it and tweak it and add to it. And I'm trying to show you a way that I've found to learn not only PowerShell, but how to learn Azure and kind of record that learning, share that learning. And it could be the basis for scripts that I use at work or to solve a problem that I need to solve at work. Code is the best way, I think, to work with the cloud. So what we're going to talk about today, this concept of PowerShell in Azure, and we're using this new flavor of PowerShell. So how many people use PowerShell? Oh, about half of you already. Okay, so how many of you have run PowerShell core? 1, 2, okay, 2 or 3 of you. How many of you have run PowerShell preview? All right, so okay, good. So I'm going to talk about PowerShell, the basics, because about half of you have not used it, and just give you the basics of it. I'm hoping that it'll be clear enough that you, at least if you looked at another programming language, you can understand what we're talking about, but feel free to ask questions. I'm going to try to show off PowerShell features, PowerShell basics, but we're going to focus on the PowerShell AZ module, okay, for Azure. So I want to show you lots of things that you can use, and again, it's all there in the code, and I want to get you to the point where you want to explore this yourself with Azure. And if you email me, if you click a link, if you contact me with my blog form and just say, Dave, this was cool, I learned something, I went and played with this, I'd love to hear that. If you have questions, if you have feedback, we'll send you guys a feedback form on the meetup. I want to hear it all, good and bad, because this is a little bit of an experiment. I'm not using slides, I'm talking through code, so I want to keep it deep and informative, but I acknowledge that I'm breaking some presenting rules by having you guys look at code all day. So it's a little bit of an experiment, and I'm interested to see and hear back from you. Okay, so we have PowerShell. It's actually, there's a great article on Wikipedia if you care to look at this, the history of PowerShell. It was called Monad. Jeffrey Snover came up with this back in the Windows XP days. They put out an update that lets you have PowerShell version 1 on your Windows XP machine if you had Service Pack 2, I think. And it's been progressing since then. And we have 5.1 as the latest version for PowerShell for Windows. So if you read about this online, you may have heard that this has been changed, that this is that PowerShell, that's actually the end of the PowerShell for Windows, because now we have PowerShell Core. Okay, .NET Core. How many people have used .NET Run, done anything with PowerShell or .NET Core? Okay. How many people know what the .NET CLI is? Okay, so about a quarter of you. So those are the developers. The push that Microsoft made recently with .NET Core, pay attention if you're a Microsoft person, okay, but also pay attention if you're an app developer in Linux or Mac, because Microsoft made the switch to deploying .NET Core that's open source, that's cross-platform. So anybody can take it, anybody can use it. They're not charging for it, and since it doesn't run, it doesn't need to run on Windows, okay, it can be run in any server on any cloud because it runs on Linux, your most popular application server. So take heed, this is where it's going. So if you're a .NET developer and you're not exploring .NET Core or PowerShell Core, this might be one of these waves that you need to get on before you get left behind. So have a look at .NET Core. So the PowerShell for Windows is built on .NET Framework. So PowerShell Core is built on .NET Core. Okay? For IT admins and DevOps and devs, it's the same principle. I can use this to manage servers in any environment. Doesn't have to be just Windows anymore. Okay, so how many people are upset by that? You're making my life difficult. Well, those people aren't in here. Okay, good. Some people are upset by that. Hey, I like Windows. I don't want to learn something else. I like PowerShell. I don't want to go learn this thing that doesn't have all the functionality I had. Okay, there's a lot of work still going on it. While PowerShell Core, there's a lot of work going on there, but not any more work going on in PowerShell 5.1. Okay, so Don Jones, this guy's the man. If you have any interest in that controversy, read his article about this. He explains it well. He understands it well.
I can attest to that. He's really good.
Yes.
I learned PowerShell from CBT Nuggets. He's got like an 80-hour course or something.
80-hour course.
Ridiculous amount of PowerShell videos.
He had some.
It's really good.
And he had some stuff on YouTube even. He was giving it away for a while too.
Yeah, PowerShell month of lunches or month of lunches or something like that.
Yes. How many of you have heard of PowerShell month of lunches? All right. So if you haven't heard of that, go Google that. If you're interested in PowerShell, that is the preeminent book, and it's still applicable to learning PowerShell. There'll be minor changes in functionality, but the same principles are there. And you want to learn. Can you think of a better book than that to give people? Or a better resource than that?
I do have a PowerShell book, but I just can't think of the name right off my head.
Well, I'll show you. I have some links later. There's some stuff online. There's some stuff at like Channel 9 and stuff. Jeff Snover and Jason Helmick, I think, like a video series.
I also have it in the Microsoft the training academy, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's pretty good as well. They talk about these different concepts.
So I'll skim over these things. I won't do any of it justice. If you want to dive into this and really understand it, there'll be good resources for that. So for today, I'm going to talk about PowerShell. And at this point, it's the release candidate. PowerShell 7 release candidate 1. So if you're interested in this and installing it and trying it, this is what, it's kind of cool actually when you run this. If you can see this little thing here, but I actually installed it here. And this is, see the little title bar on the top? This is PowerShell Preview. Here's version table. Okay, this is version 7.0 RC1. Okay, release candidate 1. So at some point, maybe February, March, this is actually going to go released. So if you're interested, that link there on the GitHub page that shows you how to get to it. And if you're in Windows, you definitely want to use this PS release tools to install it. Okay, for the purpose of time, I have a script that shows you how to do that, but I'm not going to go through the installation. I've already installed it. But you can install it to Windows or to Linux. How many of you are using the Windows subsystem for Linux? Anybody? Nobody's using the Windows subsystem?
I enabled it.
You enabled it, you turned it on?
Yeah.
Anybody has that insider build of Windows where they're using like they're pushing out the beta version of Windows to you so you can try out the new features? So if you do want to do WSL, you want to wait till that becomes released, or you want to turn on to that insider build, because WSL2 performs a lot better. It's a lot better environment for that. So if you want to play with that, go make sure you're on an insider build of Windows 10. But that's basically you're running a Windows, or you're running a Linux kernel inside of your Windows operating system. So it is Windows. It's kind of like Hyper-V, but it's a little. It's kind of like a VM. That's a Windows subsystem for Linux. It's relying on some of the technology behind Hyper-V, but they wanted to make sure that somebody who's using Windows 10, who wanted to use all the Linux native tools, would be happy in that development environment. So there's no new win, there's no recompiling, there's other hacks that we've used in Windows to use Linux tools. This is an actual Linux operating system running inside of your Windows 10. So WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux. So you can install PowerShell on Windows or Linux or into that WSL. In my case, I'm just using Windows 10, and I'm doing everything in Visual Studio Code. How many of you have installed Visual Studio Code? You must. Okay, so everybody understands, and there's no, how many people don't like Visual Studio Code? Okay, look around. There's no hands up. Think about that. All right, this is a cool thing. They're giving it away. It's the future for development in the Windows platform and in the other platforms as well. It's also open source. Yeah.
Can you run that on a pen drive code? Like,
Yes.
for example, people have Macs. I enabled before USB stuff on the stack, but I don't know if code can let you run from that.
Has anybody run Visual Studio Code on a Mac? I've seen it run on a Mac. I don't know about a pen drive though.
They have
Okay.
a Mac version.
Is that like portable? Yeah. You know what? When I say cross-platform, whenever I say Linux, I'm leaving out our Mac people. It's Linux, Mac, Windows, cross-platform.
VS Code Online.
Oh yeah. So there's a web page. I think it's like Visual Studio, like VS Code dot something. Yeah. I have another day. I'll play with that another day. So you can edit this stuff online now as well as using VS Code. So the fact that everybody here, about half of you said that you had that, and nobody said they didn't like it. So this is the future. That's where it's going. So PowerShell used to be built and worked with something called the PowerShell IDE, or the ISE rather, Integrated Scripting Environment. Now it's all being done in VS Code. So I have that installed here. This is VS Code. And I'm actually working with code here in Markdown. There's an extension here I'm using to show this, Markdown. But let's go back to my code. You guys in the back, can you read that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how you would find and run the PS Release Tools module. To install this, I'm not going to go through it again. I've already gone through this process of doing the installation and installed it. You can also go to the GitHub. Okay, all my links, I have a references markdown file in the same GitHub repository, so you can go and find this on GitHub. It's real easy to find. And within the terminal here, notice here by default, I don't know if you can see that here on my terminal, I have PS 5.1 here. And I have another one here that's PS 7. So I've just changed my prompt so I can keep track. The default for Windows for me still, even though I've installed this, I still have PowerShell 5.1. Okay, so this runs side by side. It doesn't replace your existing PowerShell. But if I go to PowerShell here, I'm going to show you guys PS version table. So this dollar says, hey, this is a variable. Can I zoom on that? No, it doesn't work. Does it zoom? Oh yeah, I can zoom on that. So this is a variable that's present inside of PowerShell. Anything that starts with a dollar is a variable. And that shows me what version, oops, I'm running. Okay, so I showed you here PS 5.1. Okay, notice the PS edition. It's a desktop. Okay, I have opened up another terminal here. PS version table. Okay, notice it's 7.0, RC1, and the PS edition is core. So as you start working with both of these versions of PowerShell, there's modules and there's resources that are built for the desktop version. Okay, that's the Windows version of PowerShell. But going forward, we want to be using the .NET Core version for all of these. So keep that in mind as you're developing. A lot of times you'll see applications out there, or modules that will work for both. And sometimes you'll see modules that are being translated, that are being ported from desktop to core. So once you've gone through the installation, okay, and again, I didn't go and run that, but when you do, I don't know if I can show the, I think I showed that to you here because my start button is over here. But they have,
Are there any significant features not supported in the version?
this one right here. This is what it looks like when you install it. Yes, There's a lot of features, things that are Windows dependent. That you want to go to the GitHub page and see all of the issues. There's a lot. Okay, so a lot of things. If you're doing .NET, if you're doing Windows administration, you're doing Active Directory, you're using things that rely on Windows management instrumentation, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to stick with desktop and use core for what you can. Yeah. So and as you'll see, there's some things that the porting was just very clean. Like PowerShell for Azure is very clean because it's all web requests. There's no dependencies to Windows, so it's easy to see why that ported very quickly. And they had did anybody ever use something called Azure RM PowerShell? So there's a PowerShell mod. One of you, two of you. Okay, good. So
It's been replaced by the AZ one.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So there's an issue if you're going to go and install this. I did show you the installation for PowerShell here. Before I get into that though, I want to show you guys a couple of things with PowerShell. And again, about half of you say you've used it. I don't want to skip this. If you guys already know PowerShell, this might put you to sleep. Bear with me. So the folks that work with PowerShell will know that, make some more space here, that all of the commands are called commandlets, CMDLETS, and you'll have a verb dash noun. Okay, so if you're starting from square one, you don't know anything about PowerShell, I want you to remember that. Remember that the useful commands that you want to start with, the three most useful commands, in my opinion: get help, get command, okay, and get member. Okay. So as I'm working with this, I have this keyed so that when I click on this line and I press F8, that's my run selection. I'm running get help, and when I run get help, I get this documentation, just a lot like a man page from Linux. Okay, shows me help. How do I use help? Okay, what are the different options? What are the different examples? Okay, so start with get help, and I can get help on each command that's out there. So I want to get help on get command. I run get help, get command. Okay, this shows me how this application or how this command works. Okay, get command gets all the commands. Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward. I can look at the description, related links, remarks, and notice you have these additional ways to get help. So if everything has, and I usually just start here, I can choose get help on whatever I care about, dash examples, show me how to run it. Give me something I can copy and paste and just run it. Or give me the full help, give me the detailed help, or even get help online. Okay, so if I take this, get help, get command, dash online. So dash is a parameter. Whenever you see a dash after a command, that means, hey, I'm about to give it a parameter. This is online. This is opening up my browser, of course, in the other window. And it's giving me some help on the online version, if it can find it. Not everything has online help. Okay. And notice the default here. I'm on docs.microsoft.com. The link is in the references as well. Notice the different versions that you have of PowerShell. So again, this is the desktop version. This is the production version of PowerShell core. Okay, is version 6, 6.something. And then here's the release candidate for PowerShell 7. Okay, this one's based on, I said that they're both based on .NET Core. The PowerShell Core 6 is based on .NET Core version 2. PowerShell 7 that we're working with today is based on .NET Core version 3.1. Okay, so this is how I keep up with things. Get help, and there's other things too. Get help, there's a bunch of about commands. I can use this. Anybody ever just wants to give you give me a general set of the concepts. Give me all of the concepts. Okay, they all start with about. So about command syntax, about common parameters. Okay, it's a book. There's a whole book in there if you want to use it to look at your PowerShell documentation. And then so that's get help, get command. If I run this, see that scrolling there on the screen? All right, well, I've actually been up to some interesting things here. I'm using commands I've pulled in from other places. In addition to the default commands, I'm trying to play around with PowerShell in the Google Cloud, or I found command list for Hyper-V. So how am I finding these other commands? We'll talk about that. PowerShell can be extended through modules. The AZ is just one of the modules. Okay, so you're probably going to find, if you start working with PowerShell, whatever your technology of choice is, there's modules to work with that. So you can search for particular keywords in the commands. You can search for commands by verb. So show me all the commands that have a verb of restart. Okay, so I can restart my computer. I can restart my AZ VM. I can restart my print job. Okay, I can go through and look through my commands that way. All right. So get help, get command, and get member. So when I work with variables in PowerShell, they all start with a $sign. So I'm going to create a variable called my variable. Oops. If I select the right line, that is. There's my variable. And can you guys read this down here?
Yes.
Let me get a little bit bigger. And then if I have my variable, I can just highlight the variable. And when I say, hey, give me this variable, it gives me back what the contents of the variable is. Okay, pretty exciting stuff. If you're a programmer, you say, okay, fine. I get that. So I could pipe this to get member. So pipe, this would be familiar to people that are using Linux or Bash scripts. I can take the output of one command and send it to another command. Very, very powerful. Because I'm going to take that variable, I'm going to pipe it to get member. Okay. And I get back this result here. Does anybody recognize this? What is this? Yeah. It's a string, but where's this from? Where's this type? What kind of type is this? This is from .NET. That's right. So all of the types that in PowerShell are .NET types. So how many of you can say you're a beginner, at least a beginner C# programmer? At least, okay. Maybe a fifth of you, not that many. All right, so I'm not going to go down this path very much, except to say that, man, this is the future, right? In the sense that this is the underpinnings of so many technologies that you're going to be working with. So a little bit of familiarity with that, even though you don't consider yourself a programmer. If you're in IT, if you're using Windows tools, you're going to be using things that are relying on PowerShell Core or .NET Core. Consider spending a week or a weekend and getting familiar. So my variable is a system.string. It's an object. This is its type. And I have all these methods I can apply to this. I can convert it to a character. I can split it. I can replace it. Okay? And it has properties like length and the characters within the string. So you're going to see this again and again where everything is an object. PowerShell objects can be these types. You can have other more complicated types. And all the objects have properties and methods that you can manipulate. So we'll see this as we go through. Yeah?
So, well, if I'm doing that kind of work in C# or even TypeScript, and I just right-click on the variable, it's going to show me that stuff in a default sense. Or if I do a dot something, is there something like that in a PowerShell IDE? Or do I have to kind of know it?
Well, by using getMember, this is kind of that's equivalent. This is kind of like reflection. Hey, show me what is inside of this. Show me the properties and the values inside of here.
And I can find out that it's not an interactive IDE where I can manipulate that.
There may be some add-ons. You're talking like I would hover over it and I'd see all the properties and the values of the properties. So I think that you want to look at, there's a debug, there's like a PS dump. I've seen that where you put any object and it just kind of walks through the hierarchy of properties and shows out all that result. Yeah.
Are you asking about the dot operator that you can use with
Well, that would be one thing. Is there an IDE where you work with this?
Well, this is an IDE here. So if I go to, let me see if I know what you're talking about. So you're talking about inspecting the object and looking in the values that are in it. Okay. So here, when I look at my variable,
in the PowerShell IFC, it has a directory type. There'll be like a drop down that appears, and you'll have the rest of the commands that are like that.
so let me do it down here. let's do it here. So if I do my variable dot,
Okay.
like that?
Well, that's in VS Code, sure.
Yeah.
So you can, I understand now.
Okay.
Where you're basically developing in there, and that's your IDE for PowerShell. 'Cause I'm
Yes.
used to using it in the terminal.
Yes. So the scripts that I'm creating here, I can drop back out to the terminal and run them. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I want to actually clicked on the icon to run the thing. I can run those from the terminal, but yeah, absolutely. I'm creating it here so I can step through.
Yeah, I just kind of wasn't linking everything together.
That's right. So I could run these same things from here. I don't have any scripts over here to run, but maybe I'll play with it after. So yeah, absolutely. And I like this because I can step through, I can edit it, and you can run it from, once you're done, your script, you can run it from not only the command line. We'll see other things, you can like Azure Web Jobs and things like that. So you can create more complicated things. I have a hash table. 7 o'clock. So I can create a hash table variable. So I can get at properties of the hash table, like hash table.name. Okay. Okay. And when I look at that and get member, okay. Again, I am looking at a object system.collections.hash table. Okay. So you can reuse anything in C#. You can create and import types back and forth. There's you can call PowerShell from C#. There's a lot of interactivity with PowerShell and C# here. So that's the basics. I'll show you more things as I go, but that's the PowerShell 101. Yeah.
Is it true to say that if PowerShell 7 is based on core,
Yeah.
then all the same functionality that exists, for example, for .NET, for C#,
Yeah.
also available in PowerShell as well?
Yes, that's right.
This one is interpreter comparing to compiler on C# side. In other words, it's much easier to do some small job with PowerShell when you need like a small integrations or something like this.
Yeah.
And if you need actual programming, you use C#, but in essence it uses core as the functionality. So they are very similar.
Yeah, you got it exactly right. So there's most things that you could come up with to do in PowerShell. I'd say, oh, that's definitely a great tool to do, or that's a function that I would like to do with PowerShell. Could also be done with straight C#. You could write some kind of console command, right, and do it that way. But PowerShell, I think of it as a bridge between the developers and IT sometimes, right? Because the developers maybe came up with these objects or types that I want to use, and then maybe the developers hand that off to the IT guys, and the IT guy uses the tool. So the developer makes the thing to manipulate virtual machines or storage, and then the IT guy uses that tool to get the work done. So there's this handoff now. So, and not just this way, but other ways too. The line between developer and admin is getting blurred. As an admin, I want to carefully consider whether I should be also being able to learn how to write code. So, yeah.
Well, you're kind of getting into like what DevOps is really.
Yes.
The biggest problem in corporations it's the separation of duties. SOD.
Yes. That's a big conversation right there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one thing what the tool does, and the other one is where you can implement it. And then there's so many restrictions. If it's a bank or if it's healthcare, so it's. It's probably a topic for another time, but whether it can be implemented, how.
So I believe that DevOps, if people are going to go down that road, they're going to run into people problems and process problems and technology problems. And I like the technology problems. Those are fun for me. I want to do this. I want to be good with IT. People problems are tough. Okay, process problems, that's not, I'm not comfortable there. But it may be that I need to learn how to do those, solve those problems, and work with other people to solve those problems, so I get to do the cool things that I want to do with technology. So I think that's the promise of DevOps, but there's a ton of hurdles, and that's the main thing. This is the way we've always done it. We always have to have separation of duties. So another conversation, another time. So any other questions? Things I can't fix. That's just fun. I can't fix that. Maybe I can. Maybe not today, though. Any other question on the basics of PowerShell? Again, I'm just zooming right through this. There's tons of good resources out there. I want you to now turn your attention to the AZ module. Okay, so I have get command, and if I run get command and say, hey, give me all the commands that relate to modules. Okay, I get these: find module, install, publish module. So I can use find module. This will actually go out and search for the through the PowerShell gallery. So if you go look up PS Gallery, you can go there in your web browser and look at the different modules that are out there. So I'm extending PowerShell functionality to work with other kinds of technologies. Anybody can write a module, put it on the PS Gallery, and I can use it to solve my problems. I'm a big fan of some of the modules like DBA tools. If you're a SQL guy, you want to be looking at that. So this module, if I do find module, I can pass in wildcards, look for things that contain AZ. Or I can put in just AZ. This is actually going out, making a call to find that here is my AZ module. Here's the version. Here's where it is in the PS Gallery. Okay, I've actually already installed this. There's the command to install it. And I can show this module and all the ones I have available to me with get module dash list available. So have a look. Here's all the modules that I have installed. Okay, look at all the ones that start with AZ. Okay, there's other ones here. I'm playing around with other things. Link, Google Cloud, the native. These are the native modules that come with PowerShell. Okay, but here, all these AZ modules. Here's the roll-up. Here's the module that contains them all. Okay, but then AZ has all these different submodules, and look, they each have their different versions. Okay, so what's happening there? And notice that these run for core and desktop. Okay, so that if you build something in Target Core, usually it works directly to a desktop. You don't have to have desktop-specific code. You'll see some things that work for both, something that work just for core or just desktop. So each team for each of these different areas of Azure is updating and maintaining their version of that module. Okay, so they can all keep up with the features and functionality as they go along. So I want to look at the commands in that module. Okay, get command with that module, that actually doesn't work. I have to run get module with this, with az.star, so I can see all of the commands in those submodules. All right, and it's a big, gigantic list.
Okay, what happened to you on the first one?
It doesn't work. I don't get anything back. So
it's not an error. You're saying there's just no commands in it?
Yeah, it's when it goes and says, show me commands that in the AZ module, it says, I don't find any commands. Because that AZ module is kind of a roll-up for all these other modules. So if I do here's something a little bit tricky. Let me see if I can zoom back a little bit here. So I want to go and get each of these modules, okay, so which we're listing AZ accounts, AZ advisor, AZ whatever, and I'm going to pipe it to a command for each object. So even if you've never seen this before, you might guess that it's a loop. For each of these, I want to look at that object and run this script on it. I want to do get command on that module. So show me all the commands in each of these modules. Okay. So you guys get your pencils. All right. All right. And that's all I have to say about Azure. No, I'm just kidding. So you can drill in and say, hey, show me the verbs. That's all the commands. But I'm going to pipe that to, and actually I should probably do this a different way. I should probably okay. So I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to pipe it to another command, group object, based on the verb. So remember, there's verb dash noun. So I'd like to see for each of these commands what verbs are in those commands. And here's a little trick. This is a one-line command, okay? But I can use the pipe, and if I use a pipe, then I can put the next line down and I can indent it. And actually, it did that for me by default. So this is a nice, compact and readable way to take this command, pipe it to this command, and pipe that to this command. So now I can see for each of these modules what commands, verbs there are. Okay, I can explore all these: add, deny, grant, import. Same thing with the verbs, or same thing with the nouns. I'll leave that for you guys to play with. All right. So actually, I really like pretty code, and I didn't do that here, so I'm going to do that here. So I've installed the module, but let's start getting our hands on this and see what we can do with this. Okay, I want to start off with a resource group. Now I'm sure you're familiar now. We've come into this thing. We're talking about Azure. We're putting things together. Everything has to be in a resource group. Everything lives in exactly one resource group. So all these scripts, I put the sub-module that I'm interested in, and I have this little trick. When I run this script, if I press F5, it's going to run the whole thing. Okay? And the way I'm using it, that doesn't make sense right now. I'd rather step through one command at a time. All of these scripts are designed to be stepped through so I can learn what's going on. So if I press F5 right now, it'll just exit. Okay? So instead of debugging and running the whole thing, now, oh, I lost my, there it goes back to here. So that prevents me from doing that. So there's a little trick if you have a script that's like this. And again, I can go through the AZ resources, go in the commands, okay, look in the verbs and the nouns. I actually want to get my AZ resources. So here this lists all of my resource groups. And the resources, within those groups. And then get Azure Resource Group shows me the groups that I have. I haven't logged in yet. Okay, that's a good point. So I skipped that because I went to, forgot to show you the login. How do you actually connect to your account?
I think it's like the connects. It's a command
Maybe
connect AZ something. One of the commands wants to connect to 36.
Connect account. So I actually put these in the wrong order.
AZ account, connect AZ account on 36, line 36 on your editor. Connect AZ account.
That's good. That's right. So even if you don't know how your files are ordered, like me, you could still find out, like, hey, I forgot how to do this. And that happens to me a lot as I'm working with these things. What's the login command? How do I connect? Okay. So I can do, I want to find, I know it has something to do with accounts, right? So I could say get command module accounts. Here's all these different things in there. Say, well, show me the nouns. I'll skip the verbs for a moment. Okay, here's the different objects that I can deal with. If I'm using this module, here's the different things. Okay, AZ account, that looks important. So what commands do I use to work with this module or with this object? Connect AZ account and disconnect AZ account. Okay, right? So you're going to forget. You're not going to memorize all this. You're going to switch contexts and come back, and you're not even going to recognize your own code. Okay. The trick is to be able to find that again. Know how to search. Know how to look for it. And this is what I've done here. So I'll fix that. I'll change the ordering, and I'll push this up at the end of the day. So I got these in the wrong order. So if I run this get command against the noun AZ account, oh, hey, look at all the other commands. I can add, I can log in, I can log out, I can remove, I can connect. It turns out that login AZ account, I can get help on that. And look at this. There's all these different examples, all these different ways to log in. Okay. So if I just use connect-AZ account, this is where you should start. And it turns out login AZ account is actually an alias. I don't know if you guys can see this down here. A lot of times you'll find commands that are aliases or just another name for some other account. So if I have connect AZ account has an alias for add AZ account or login AZ account, because these are actually pulled from previous versions of the Azure modules. So if I'm using, oh, sorry, I lost my connection here. I'm going to start that meeting back up if anybody's using that meeting.
So I knew you could create aliases, but I had no clue they were using them.
Yes. Yes. So if I could do like get
Child item. You never know.
yeah, get child item. That's a good one.
One has like their LS. What UCI.
Where am I? That's weird. Oh, I'm down here. That's interesting. Why is that not working? Huh. Oh, get alias. Oh, that's the other way around. Get alias ls. So yeah. So get ls is the alias for get child item for your Linux people. All right. So to connect, and I have a couple of different ways to connect here. If I use the interactive one, okay, when I run this, it tells me to go to this page, okay, and enter this code to authenticate. And when I go to open up this page, that's where my session is. So if I'm already logged in, so I go to portal.azure.com and I go and log in, then I would put in that code, and I'm connected. Let me see if I have I think my session is still open over here.
Child item one, you have to include the dash definition parameter, and it will show you their GCI and LS releases.
Oh, if you put in dash definition, it tells you what.
Dash definition, get child item.
Oh, so I would put that here. I would put that after. I would put that here. Dash definition. Or here.
You have it on your example. But instead of connect dash AZ account, just use get child item. And there's 3 of them. Their GCI and LS.
So GCI and LS are all aliases for get child item. That's good. So if I come over here, if I bring this, duplicate window right. No, that doesn't work. Shift window right. So I paste that link they gave me in here, okay, and I put in this code. So I've already logged into Azure, okay. So this session is already connected and I'm already authenticated with my account in Azure. So when I click on this connect, okay, it asks me to put in this code. Okay, and I pick my account. I've got a bunch of different accounts. Please, I'm all over the place. So I pick that account. Okay, now look what happened. As soon as I clicked OK, it says, here, you're done here. You can close this window. It doesn't need this anymore. Yeah?
Also,
go ahead.
For the get help, dash get command, dash online, you can also do dash show window, and it pops up its own help file.
Yes, so it takes you to the web version of the help if it exists. That's right.
No, it's not the web. It's just a text file, a little text file. You do dash show window.
Oh, I see. So if I do, okay, so online is that what I'm talking about. If I do show window, I'm not sure that works in core. I think that's dependent on, WinForms. So there's like out grid view. There's something that they're working on now because people were really upset about losing out grid view because that depended on WinForms. But I think they have a way they're making it work now. There's some cross-platform support for forms coming. Any other questions as we're going through here? Okay. So at this point, I just authenticated. Now, a little bit of a tangent. If you're using VS Code and there's extensions, okay, so there's an extensions marketplace. So
If you, I think it's minimized on your PowerShell 4 app. So if you click on the PowerShell 4 app, the help file comes up. See? Yeah.
Huh? I want to get to this one here. Oh, I see it. It did come up. Okay, so that still works. So this is a cross-platform form that it's displaying. So when I do get help, give it the name dash show window, then this comes up. So I've got an internal documentation here that I can search through as well. That's cool. I didn't even know about that. I didn't know that they brought that across. That's really cool. So now that I'm connected, okay, I'm actually using some of these other Azure tools. There's actually an Azure account tool. This simplifies things a little bit, gives you a couple other ways to connect. What's cool, like you see down here, my Azure demo, David, I'm actually connected in. I can see that connection there. So that's a handy extension to use, as well as you've got to have the PowerShell, and I would recommend you look at the PowerShell preview extension if you're going to be playing in Visual Studio Code. And I have these linked in my my references. Those are the two that I'm using, but there's a lot of good extensions out there. But this PowerShell preview, this is what gives me the support for PowerShell. And then if I want to be able to interact with my Azure resources, connect to my storage accounts and so forth, there's extensions for those things. Good.
There are Azure extensions or Visual.
VS Code extensions. So
They're VS Code.
yes, you come into this marketplace, you click on this little square here, and you just put it in whatever it is you're looking for, extensions about Azure or Markdown or debugging. There's all sorts of cool stuff. People are really, they've made this very extendable. So in my references, that I link those. How are we doing on time? 7:20. Oh my goodness. So I think I got until what, 8 o'clock? How about 12 o'clock? Can I go till 12 o'clock? All right. I'm going to run out of time. So I've connected, right? So I've connected to the account. And this is an important module. So the AZ PowerShell Basics, I'm actually going to switch this. I'm going to rename this and push it up. So the AZ account, once you connect, there's a set of commands, okay? When I run get command and I pass in the module AZ accounts, and then verb get, show me all the things I can get. Where can I request information? So all the different things that are useful in my account, things like my subscription ID, okay, or my tenant ID. What are my defaults that I've set for my environment? Okay, context. Am I connected to any accounts? Okay, shows me, yeah, your context, you're connected to this demo@davidcobb.net account on this subscription. Here's my subscription. Here's my tenant ID along GUID. Okay, so when you're working with Azure, you're always in some context, some account, some set of subscriptions. You might be having to switch between, and you can keep track of those with these PowerShell commands. So I'm going to go forward. There's a lot more I could spend time on, and I'm just trying to give you a balance of here's the basic, but hey, here's all the really great stuff you can do. So let me know if I'm going too fast, or you guys have, if I touch on something that's interesting to you, let me know. How's the pace so far? Is it good enough? Who thinks I'm talking too fast? Who thinks I'm talking too slow? No, we're okay? All right. All right, so resource groups, we start with that. So let's come back to this. So I look at the commands around AZ resources here. I can get my resource groups. I've actually already created a few different ones here. I've set things up a certain way here so that when you're using these scripts, okay, I want to make these nice and reusable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out to My Settings. Okay, so a part of an idea with PowerShell is you can include other files. Okay, I'm going to show you how we're doing what's called dot sourcing. So my script that's working with the resource group is going to include or dot source this My Settings group. So that way I can use these same settings in my other scripts without having to copy and paste and forget that I forgot something and mess myself up. So I'm going to call this MCSFUG-RG for resource group. Okay, I'm going to keep my stuff in US East 2. Later on, I'm going to create a storage account. I'm going to use the same image. I'm going to save my settings. So what does that do for me? So these are the 4 variables I'm defining. I'm going to reuse these elsewhere. Okay. Notice when I hover over here, because I'm using that PowerShell extension, it's telling me, hey, there might be a problem here. I don't see that you're using these variables here. So that's okay. I don't care about that. I'm using them somewhere else. And that's one of the benefits of using these extensions. So it's really handy as you start working with code to be able to see some of these helps as you're going through. Okay. So in my resource, which I have in the wrong order. Why did I do that? So I'm going to create a new, if I go and run this command right now, okay, dot, and then the relative path to the PS function, Okay. Now, when I look and say, hey, show me what is my resource group name. Actually, let's just highlight this and press F8. Okay. MCSFUG-RG. So it defined that variable for me. So now I'm going to run new AZ resource group. Here's my name. Okay. I need to tell it what location I'm in. And I've added this -debug parameter on here. Okay. This is fun if you do this to any command that uses my location name. What is my location name? Oh, I misspelled it, I think. All right, so notice what happened here. I ran that and I blew up. And look at the error message. Cannot validate argument on parameter location. The argument is null or empty. So I'd misspelled this. Okay, so you're going to get good at looking at error messages and trying to figure out what the problem is. Okay, so now I've corrected the spelling of my variable. Now I can run this again with the debug parameter. So it's going to confirm because it's in debug mode. Yes, no, yes to all, no to all, suspend. I'm going to say yes. Now look what's happening here. Look at all the stuff that's going past. HTTP response. Anybody recognize this? What's happening behind this?
You're doing a web service request.
Oh, you got to do one.
Yes. That's right. Every request, every command is all hitting an API. Oh, MC yes to all. Actually, I'll keep saying yes and let it page through. So debug. Anybody here ever had to debug an API call? REST? Anybody ever had to debug REST? Okay, so talk to him. He understands how this works. All right. This is how you'll, maybe if you have some kind of trouble, you can get in under the covers and see, well, what's going on here? Show me the API calls. Show me the body. Show me the headers. Okay. And it looks like it ran and it succeeded. Now, this really long resource ID, you're going to see this a lot. A lot of time when you create objects, you need to relate them to other things. So I might have a web application that needs to use this resource group, and it'll be this long path within this subscription that is this GUID. There's a resource group called this. Okay, that's my resource ID, that whole string. So you need this when you're starting to build more complicated things that have other dependencies. All right. So I have my resource group. I would like to set this as a default. So it turns out there's a way to do set AZ default that'll tell the session that every time you create something, if you don't specify a resource group, to use that one as the default. So I can run set AZ default. So now my future calls, if I don't specify, we'll use that resource group. I can run get AZ default, and it tells me now I got these values. So look at how it's giving me my data. So when I use PowerShell, I get back a set of objects or properties and then the values in those properties. Okay? And each object has a default set of properties to show you. But sometimes there's more properties there that are not shown. So if I do get AZ default, and see right now you're only seeing these values. But if I do pipe this to select objects, this is just like select for SQL. And we select object star. Give me all the columns or all the properties. Actually, this one doesn't have any more. That's not a good example. Let's do like account, maybe. Bless you.
Oddly enough, select on its own is an alias for select object as well.
Select just without the dash object?
Yeah, so if you use this select the wildcard, it will still work.
So if I run like get subscription, here's my subscription that has these 4 properties. I think if I do type that to select star, I think this gives me more. So I'm using the alias. Yeah, so there I only gave the 4 properties, but if I do select star, now I can see that there's other properties as well. So be aware of that. You may not see all the properties by default. And what do I use if I want to inspect an object and figure out what properties, what are the methods on this? What's the command? Well, that shows you what commands are, but now I have an object and I want to see, show me the properties and methods. Get member, that's right. So get help, get command, get member. This is how you're going to find this stuff. Yeah?
Good question. The defaults that you set with set AZ default persist for how long? Just this shell session?
I think it's just for this session. So that if I go back to
And also, what are you hitting to run just the one line that you have in VS Code?
so F8, so that's a good question. So in VS Code, Control-Shift-P brings up this context menu here that basically you get at all the functionality within the editor. And then you go into your keyboard shortcuts, and you can control that. I think it's...
So F8 is not, it's like just that one line. It's not actually running and stepping into the entire script, of course.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, so if I press F5, it will run the whole script.
Sure.
I put exit in the tops of these kind of scripts, so it'll abort, and I won't do that by mistake. But I'm just used to now. I don't even go near F5 anymore. Actually, if you're a SQL person and you press F5 to run things, and you come in here and you press F5, it'll mess you up. So just be warned. You can change the keys yourself. So, good question. And let's see if I back to, actually I can go back to get AZ default or set AZ default full. I can do show window. Can I do show window?
You can just do one, and then you can also use like dash examples too if you just want to see only the examples.
I was going to look up the answer to his question. Maybe I don't know if that'll work. Let's see. In the current context, yeah. So as soon as I logged off or close that session, that would go away. All right. So it's explorable. So you're constantly going to be doing this. You're constantly going to figure out how does this work? How do I relate this to what I already know? And you keep going back to these same commands. All right. So there's resources. We created our account. We already connected to the account. We created a resource group. So the next building block is storage. So we have all of these different commands to deal with storage. Again, this is very, very feature rich because I can see all of these different commands. I know there's a lot going on with storage in terms of the functionality here. And whenever I'm looking at a different module like this for the first time, I kind of come at it from this top level. What's everything? Okay, now show me again. Let's go back to the verbs. What are the different actions I can take? Okay, and I use group here so I can say, okay, well, it looks like there's a lot of sets and removes. You say, oh, lock. Oh, maybe I need to prevent something from being changed. Let me remember that. Update, start, set, revoke. And then for each of those verbs, here are the commands that use those verbs. And the same command for the nouns. All right. Again, explorable. Okay, you're not going to remember this all. All you need to remember is how to find it. Okay, here's the different objects I'm working against. Azure RM storage containers, AZ storage accounts, storage shares. And again, you can use wildcards. So if I'm interested in command, say I want to get all the commands that deal with shares, okay, I can say name share star. So anything that contains name share or starts or ends with share. Okay, so I can use get command to get a feel for, hey, what's that command? I needed to deal with my, I needed that thing to create a new storage share. Oh yeah, new AZ storage share. Okay, you're not going to remember, just remember how to find it. Okay, I'll keep harping on that. So right now, if I come in here, get AZ storage account, I can see my existing storage account. Right now I've got the Cloud Shell. When we have time at the end, I'll show you this, but it's real trivial. Now that you've started playing with this, you might actually, rather than going with VS Code, you might just go into your Azure portal, and up on the top you have a link to open up the Cloud Shell. We get some time, I'll show you how to integrate the Cloud Shell in here. I can actually see the Cloud Shell down here and integrate from within VS Code and work against that Cloud Shell. So I don't even have to store my files locally. It's all on the cloud. But that's the storage account I have now, but maybe I want to create a new storage account. So again, I can go into Get Help, a new storage account. How does this work? Okay, and I can see all the different examples to how to create these things. All right, I think this works for me. I'm going to create a storage account. Now, let me show you another feature I may not have mentioned here. Backticks. It's often the case you're going to run a command that goes past the screen, and it's bad form to have stuff that you have to scroll to the right. If you want to make it readable, make it easy for people to read your stuff, you want to put things on separate lines, but the only way to make PowerShell understand that is to end each line with a backtick. That's the top left corner key below your escape key. It's the backtick. It's not the best choice because it's really, you don't know, sometimes you don't know if you have a backtick or you have something on your screen. So it's a little hard. It's hard to see sometimes. And if you leave one out, this is one of the harder to troubleshoot things. So notice I have one for each line except the last one. Okay, if I put it on the last one, it doesn't work. So, but this way I can see all my properties, all my parameters on the screen. So I'm going to call new AZ storage account with all my parameters, resource group name, SKU, okay, standard locally redundant storage, and the location that I'm interested in, okay, East US 2. And I'm going to notice here I'm setting that variable storage account equal to the result of this. So when this thing runs, it creates an object and hands it into this variable. So I'm going to run that. And right now I'm provisioning a storage account. You better not take too long. Any questions while we're waiting for Azure to come through? Yeah.
If you're using pipe statement, is backtick an optional or?
They can be interchanged.
Okay.
So if the last thing on the line is a pipe, you don't need the backtick. Okay. Otherwise, you've got to have the backtick. And usually the backtick is showing up in between portions of one command. So the pipe is in between the commands. So that's a good question. And you're gonna, if you take on PowerShell, I want you to become obsessed with formatting. You're gonna have a lot of this. Later on I'll show you how to do splatting. There's better ways. You don't want stuff to scroll to the right. You want to make it nice and easy to read. Lining things up, tabbing. You want it to be pretty. And I've taken some liberties here because I'm doing this teaching. But yeah, there's a big benefit to making it readable. Elegance, make your team members happy. So I have the storage account object. Pipe it into get member. Okay, here's another property. A set of properties and methods. Look at my type. Is that too small? Maybe that's too small.
No,
you good? It's a PS storage account. All right, so I can go in and engage with all of these properties and methods in my storage account. Okay, explorable. It's a .NET object. I can go and find the documentation. I can see how this works. There's probably somebody else who already solved this problem that I wanted to solve. The things that I'm doing today, I was able to go out and find in the help and simple samples and tutorials. Okay, so it's totally explorable, easy to find solutions for things. When I'm using this storage account, you create like a context. I think of context like a kind of like a connection string for my session. So every storage account has a context. So when you start reading and writing files, you use that context as a reference to the storage. I'm going to create a container. So I have the account, and the account's like a drive, like a volume. And then within that drive or volume, I want to create containers. Those are kind of mapping to folders. So I'll create there's my images folder name. I'm going to create a new AZ storage container. In this context, here's the name of my container. I created it. So notice my link here. So I named it MCSFUG store. Okay, so that's how we get to it. By default, public access is off, but it created the images container. I'm going to send it a file now. I want to upload a file. So I have in my settings, I found a URL. This is actually pulled from the MCSF website. I'm going to create a file name by using split path. So this is a fun little command. This goes and says, hey, go look at this long path, split path, break it into pieces for me. And -leaf says, just give me the last piece. So how hard is it? Have you anybody programming? If I look at this and I just want to get this, right? It's paying string, split, slash, dot. So now that I know how to do that, then I can just reuse this. Okay. So if I run this line.
So it's a PowerShell specific command, or you can find it in.
I believe there's probably a flavor of that. This is probably inheriting something from split. So I could get whatever the last element of the array is, like -1 or something, like 0 is the first and -1 is the last. But I think this is particular to this split path commandlet. There's probably a way to do that in C#. Anybody know? Okay, it's based on the same stuff underneath the hood. So now I have that file name. Okay, I'm going to create a path using join path. So I want to use my environment variable. So I haven't gotten into the different types of variables. Another day, another time. But you know how when you're in DOS or MS-DOS, you type in set, and it shows you all those environment variables. You have to go tweak them for applications like your path. So env is the equivalent. So env:temp says go to the environment variables, give me the temp directory. All right, and so I'm going to join that with the name of my file, and that's going to be the path to my when I download this. Okay, so it's going to save it to here in my temp folder. Invoke web requests. Has anybody here ever used curl? A couple curl people. All right, so this is curl. All right, I'm going to go out to the web. I'm going to grab this URL, this image, okay, which is down here, and I'm going to save it to this path. wget, it's the same thing. So I saved it. Now I want to upload it to my storage. So set AZ storage blob content. Okay, so I'm not going to, just for the interest of time, I need to know the file, the container, okay, the blob or the binary object, and the context, which we just got as a property from the storage container. So I'll run this. You saw that happen real quick because it was kind of small, but it does shows you a progress bar as you're uploading those things. And if I come back to, where's my there? So if I go back to storage accounts.
So in your case, the file name was URL, but what if the file is local still?
So at this point, I downloaded it to a local file. I put it in my temp directory, and I uploaded it from my temp directory. So yeah, I suppose you could do that. You could probably grab it and then send it across. There's got to be a way to just set it a web file. But here in storage accounts in my portal, here's my portal, or here's my storage account. Here's my containers. Here's my image. Okay, there's my file. I can download it. Open it in GreenShot.
And you can also make it public, right?
Yes. So right now, by default, it's turned off. But yeah, absolutely. That's all public. You can put things publicly. You can use that as a basis for web applications. You can look up how to do static websites. You put CDN, the Content Delivery Network from Azure, in front of the storage, and you can do static-based websites using storage. There's a lot of hooks where maybe you don't want to make it public, but you want to share it to the outside world, maybe with a SaaS, like a temporary key. So you can share content like temporarily with temporary permissions instead of just opening it up to the world. There's a lot involved with this. I won't drill into. And then I'm going to delete that storage account, remove AZ storage account. Okay. Yes, absolutely. There's a application I'm using, WordPress. It wants to save temporary files to do Let's Encrypt. It hooks into the storage account to get the save the unique identifier file name, and I hooked WordPress into storage. I learned way more than I wanted to about permissions there, but yeah, it's all controllable. So that's the storage. There's any questions on that? Time for maybe two more of these. It's 7:45. Let me push. Yeah.
Is there like a management system in place if a container goes down?
Yeah, well, there's interesting. When you create a container, let's say you put a file in there, but under the hood, you're going to get 2 copies for free. So I think they create one in that same availability zone, and then they create another one in a paired availability zone. So if it's a US East 2, like this one, I think there's like at least 2 or maybe more.
Wires are getting crossed. Are you referring to a storage account, or are you referring to like a Docker container, a programming environment?
I guess application, if your computer goes down, you still need a web.
Right, but it can be applied for two different things, like the storage container with a physical file, right, where you can mirror that physical file. But what's very popular is to do like a Docker container, a sandbox for like a website or something that you need self-contained. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same.
So that's going to kind of fall under compute, and like say you have Hyper-V and like virtual machines, and then the next level is containers. So this is a much more primitive because that has compute behind it. That's got memory and disk and CPU. You're running a process within an actual OS. It can do work. This is strictly storage. So the default redundancy is to give you two copies that are locally redundant. But you say, hey, you know what, that's not good enough for me. I need lots of protection. It's mission critical data. You can get globally redundant storage and say, I need it on the East Coast and the West Coast. In case there's an earthquake over here, I need a copy over here. All right? So you want to spend more, you can get more redundancy. And the more redundancy you get, I don't know, do you need 11 nines? Do you want 12 nines? Or do you really need, how many nines? Yes. Right. So yeah, you have to go in and look at there's a calculator here, I forget, but basically I think it was something like,
based on the type of storage that you use, you have the hot tier, you have the cool, so it depends on what storage you use.
That's right. So I would pick something like, go to the Azure price calculator and just type in the stuff that you're looking for. And play around with this. It takes a little time to get used to how it works, but you can get a good feel for how much it costs, because costs of different things based on where they are in the world. More popular regions might cost a little bit more. If I go to storage accounts, go view my storage account. I can do hot, cold, or archive. I can do standard or premium. Let's do premium. I want to do zone redundant storage. So for a terabyte of data, okay, that's $200 a month, all right? So if I only want 1 gig, 20 cents a gig, all right? So maybe if I want to do it in Japan, it's 29 cents in Japan, all right? Because there's not much space left in Japan, I guess, all right? So you have to come in and play with the calculator and figure it out. And this is dynamic. This will shift around. Market prices, they might go to competition with AWS, and things get cheaper. So you have to keep an eye on the pricing. So a couple things I want to show you. One of the big, any other questions like this too? I like this. I'd rather talk about your questions. You guys can look at my code. It's there. This is all designed to be stepped through. And if you can't figure out based on the comments and things that I put there, because I won't do everything, probably I'm going to run out of time, click on it, click through it, step through, just as I'm doing here, and explore it. Any other questions? I'll keep going.
Actually, I have a question regarding the key vault. You have this right here.
Well, I'm glad you asked about the key vault. Let me tell you what I can tell you about key vault. So the problem with the web in general is secrets. Okay, I don't want to post my connection string somewhere where a bad guy will get it. I don't want to put it in my code because it might end up on GitHub. Okay, I don't want to deploy it on my container because that container might be compromised. Or my VM or my web server. So the answer for this is to have these key vaults. So Azure has theirs. You can get one from HashiCorp. They have a vault. If you want to be platform agnostic, AWS has theirs. All the cloud providers do. And the idea is it's set up in such a way that you can tell your application how to get that. And the application can use a service account or an internal identity to get permissions to access that key that your bad guy would never have, and they won't be able to go to that directly. So really common scenario here, and I'll use a password here to create a VM. I think that'll be my final demo here. So we can do it in 10 minutes. So I want to create a vault. I want to put a secret in it, and I want to use PowerShell to create the secret, and I want to use PowerShell to get the secret to use as my password for a VM. So I'm going to stand up a VM, and that secret's going to be the admin password. All right, so it's a two-part demo here. All right, so again, I can explore AZ key vault, okay, and look at the different verbs, look at the different things I can do. And again, keep coming back to this. Okay. Oh, I could back it up. I didn't know I could back it up. How do I back it up? See? All right. How do I undo? Oh, I can make a mistake and undo my mistake. Hey, I should find out about that. All right. I like making mistakes. And this gives me a good sense of what's possible in that object. Okay. And then the things that I want to work with. Okay, here's my different objects and the number of commands that deal with each of those objects. Okay, I'm harping and harping because you should play with that. So I'm going to create a resource group object. So we have the resource group name. You guys will remember if I highlight this and press F8, that's the name of my resource group. Okay, so this is my resource group object. Okay, I'm piping it to get member because I need to know maybe things like the location. Where is it? Okay, and with that information, you look at my resource group dot location. So here's the object dot property. It's in East US 2. I'm going to create my vault. Here's my name of my vault, my MCSFUG vault. And I'm going to create a new AZ key vault with that name in that resource group at that location. Oh, you know what? I already used this vault name. Let's do vault 2. Use that vault too. How about 99? Did I use 99? All right, we're good. So let's try it now. F8. There we go. So I have a new vault. Or delete this stuff when I'm done. And this takes a couple moments to spin up. So I guess while I'm doing that, I'll talk about the next step. Now in this example here, just because it's simplicity, I'm teaching you guys, here's my super secret password. All right? Be careful that you don't do that same thing in your scripts. Okay, what you want to do, if you're going to type in, if you want to provide a script, you want to type it in maybe. Okay, so instead of using this, in this case I don't care if a bad guy gets into my VM, but I might do this. I might say my password equals, and then give it the result of read host. So that'll read from the command. I run this command, it'll prompt me, and I'll type it in. Okay, so that way I don't need to show you guys my command. I can use that.
You can also do get credential.
So get credential can work as well. So get credential, you would put in a username and a password. And so I could store those as well. Well, you can store you can store credentials, you can store certificates. In this case, I just need the password. So I'm keeping it a little simpler. But yeah, that's right. Credential will have the username and the password. And instead of storing it in plain text, it stores it as an object, a secure string. Okay, that's a little bit more protected. So I might run this. Enter password to store in the vault. Okay, so I'm a little lazy, so I'm going to do this. All right. Or oh, something went wrong there. I pasted it wrong. Let me just try this again. Let's copy that. Oops. Paste. I don't know. I can't. For some reason, I can't paste. There it goes. Huh. Super. So now, if I say, and this is probably not what I want to do for security either, but okay, there's my secret password, and I could have, right now it's text, but I could have actually taken another step here with read host and stored it as a secure string right away. But this command will store it as a secret value. Okay, so now when I look at it, okay, it's a secure string. Now it's ready to be put into the vault. So the secret, I'm going to set Azure Key Vault secret. Here's my vault name. And you know what? Let me use, because I haven't been doing that here, let's use my backticks. Make that a little easier to read. Okay. So I've set that into the vault. Now, if I want to get it out of the vault, I need to, now again, and the reason I'm able to connect right now is because I'm the user that has access to it. Otherwise, I'll have to provide permissions. I'm not getting into permissions today. But this command here, get AZ Vault secret from this vault. Here's the name of the secret. And once I get that object, it has a property, the secret value text. Yeah?
Can you show us this entry on Azure?
You mean the portal?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. Let's see, vaults. Key vault. I've got vault 99. Let's see if we got any secrets in here. Let's see. Secrets. Here it is. There it is. All right. All right. So cool. Actually, didn't play with that. I've been forcing myself to not go there, actually. And so far, it's working pretty well. A couple times, like with the storage, like just to look at the value, like I do that. But I've been trying to stay here and not use the portal. So we'll see how that goes. So this one, I have a secret. Now I want to use it for something. Why don't I use it to spin up a virtual machine? This will be our last demo. The AZ Compute module. Okay, that's around VMs. That's around containers. It's all there. We can look at the verbs again and the nouns. I'm going to skip that for now. I have get AZ VM. Show me all my virtual machines. Okay, so I've created a couple already. VM1, VM2. All right. Oh, these should be stopped. They're ringing up my my costs. So I actually have a script here. This will this command here. This will actually go and get all my VMs. For each resource group, they're all in separate resource groups. Yes. So, and then stop them. MCSFUG. Yeah. All right. So I'm not going to mess with this. I'll play with it. I'll let it go for a little longer. So I could stop those later. I'm paranoid about spending money. So at this point, I'm going to create a new one, spend some more money. All right. So I want to create a credential using that secret from the vault. Okay. So my admin password secret, I want to call the get Azure QL secret. Let's do some backticks here. Let's get this a little bit easier to read. I'm breaking my own rules. Okay. So go into the vault. What's my vault name? Has it been updated? Yeah, Vault 99. And go get my admin password. Okay. So there it is. There's my secret. Okay. Notice it's a secret object. It didn't just show me the script. Okay. So it's named, it's admin password. It's a secret object. Okay. So it's okay to put it into a credential. So it's protecting that value. So I'm going to create a username dcadmin. I'm going to create a credential. This is using a new System Management Automation PS credential object. I'm going to pass in my username. Here's my secret object. And then here's the property of that object, the secret value. So with this column here, I should be able to create the credential that I want to use on my virtual machine.
And the actual password will be the encrypted value?
Yeah, that's right.
Original password that you put.
How do I know? So if I go to here, if I look at this, here's the object that contains the secret. Okay, but I'd like to know. Let me look at the properties of this object. Let me see if you can tell me where I would look for it. Get member. All right. Okay. I forget. Which one is it? Here's the properties of that secret object. Where would it be? Well, I said there's two possible choices here. Can you guys read that?
Yeah, secret value.
So what's the data type of the secret value? Right, so am I going to be able to read that? All right. Yeah, that's right, but I can read this one, right? Because this is just a string data type.
So if you know a clear text, one's not.
That's right, so the secret value text is actually in clear text. So if I go, I'll show you. If I do, here's my admin password secret dot secret value. Show me what that is. Okay, it's a system.search. Oh, thanks a lot. All right, so if I want to look at the other one, secret value text, there it is.
When you create your account, when you create your credential, provide property secret value, that property will automatically be translated into your plain text password when it gets.
Yes, well, when you store it with credential, actually expects the secret value. It actually expects the secure string. you have to jump to another hoop to turn the text value into a secure string. So that's how it expects it in that property. So yeah.
So on that note, if you're using invoke web request or invoke REST method, and the API that you're pulling from has a not a password, but the key that expires in 24 hours.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
You have to grab another key every 24 hours. What would
You
you
might.
do in that instance?
You might have to re-authenticate. You might have to re-authenticate your session.
Right, but I'm just saying, how would you track of like if I want to automatically, if I'm hitting this thing every 5 minutes, right? What would you suggest of maybe storing that time in a SQL table, or that the last time I refreshed, or what would you do to say that this is the last time I refreshed, it was now 23 hours, and I got to grab another one, or?
I don't know. You know what we could do? Let's look at this. If I do, yeah, go ahead.
It might be like track for authentication token, you have expiration date time. So you have to track it, and 5 minutes before, I resend the authentication request to a new token, and then I request the full token.
But where are you tracking that time at? Where are
On
you-
my side, on the client side.
Okay.
So let's try this.
And where are you saving that, I guess?
All right, I don't know if this will help. I'm going to run that same command where we just got the secret, but I'm going to add the debug parameter to it. And let's just look and see if there's anything here about the timeout or the session age or something like that. So this is the HTTP response and the request. Junk. All right, so if I sift through all this stuff, here's the debug command, information, serialized token, here's a timestamp.
That's an SS token.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, here's my OAuth. Acquiring token using the domain. It might be in here somewhere. I used to use the dash debug.
Yeah, for us, it should be for sure there. So that's what we normally do. You pull it and you store it in local store.
Cache type, no. Source. Token acquisition started. Here's a timestamp. So maybe based on this value here, I'd be able to calculate it. Oh, here we go. Expiration time. Bang. There's probably a property there somewhere.
Can you use PowerShell's invoke web request to parse local files to the Azure Cognitive Services?
Yes. So you might say push it up to, grab it, push it up to the storage account that then has a, what's the hook? Like a web hook or something that says, oh, there's a new file here. Event Hub? I forget what that's called. Event Hub. So it says, oh, hey, here's a new file. Hey, let me fire off this Azure function. It's based on so you pass in the connection string, so it's watching that storage. Yes. The answer is yes, you can. I don't know how.
So
but I could figure it out.
A bunch of
Your log.
theoretically, ideally, maybe if I was trying to organize a bunch of files and I wanted to have it pick up certain keywords within the files and create folders based on those tags that are
Yes.
on my trained model. So I could invoke a web request on my local files, push them all through, and have it come down and create folders and move the files to each of those directories based on the tags.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that sounds like there's a text recognition service in the Azure Cognitive Services that you feed it in your raw text and you give it parameters for how you want it to process, and then wherever you tell it to put the results somewhere in the storage, and then you could process it based on that. So hey, ask me about cognitive services after. I'm gonna get through here. There's a couple. We just did this cloud workshop where we talked about that. You were there? Did you come to that? So was there anything that dealt with OCR that day? We did a lot of things with images. We did things with like sentiment analysis and stuff. Did we do anything with OCR like pulling text?
I don't think so. No.
There's a set of features to deal with text, but let me. I'll say maybe. I'll say probably. I think you probably can, but I'd have to look at the pieces of the technology that you want to connect to do that. But yeah, PowerShell is the glue for all this stuff. I really think this is the glue for anything Azure related, any application. And for that matter, I mean, if you say, well, yeah, but we use AWS for some of the thing, there's a PowerShell module for AWS. It looks a lot like this. I think it's not as clean. I think this is really well developed and easy to explore. And there's one for Google as well. So, all right. So I got to. Oh, I'm over time. So look. So this is a splat. You ever heard of splatting? Yeah. Splatting's cool. So I could run a command, new AZVM dash resource group name is this, dash name is that, dash location is this, and it scrolls, and I have to do backticks, and it's a big mess. Or I can create this hash table with each property and the value. Okay, you can read that. It's understandable. You could probably tell me what each of those things are, even though you've never seen this command. I love splatting, because if I create this is a hash table, VM params. When I pass it in, instead of putting a $sign, I put an @ sign in front of it. So it's just as if I had dash each of these followed by the property here. So splatting is awesome for readability, for maintainability.
So it's like an object that you transfer instead of sending separately, or?
Yeah, a hash table is not, well, for that matter, I mean, a string is an object. But yeah, so the way you're thinking about it is a collection of properties, right? So I could take a JSON file and convert JSON to a hash table with one command. So I could, instead of having it defined here, go out to the JSON, get the parameter file, and then turn it into a hash table and then pass it in here. So later on we'll talk about, not today, we won't talk about templates because they ran out of time. But that's basically what you're doing. You're grabbing parameters from JSON files and turning them into object collections, hash tables. So there's my VM parameters. I'm going to, let me call this VM3. I think I already did this one. So this is VM parameters. Here's my command to create the variable. And again, I'm going to put dash debug on here because it's fun to watch it work. So new VM3 equals new AZVM. Here's my parameters. Okay, there's the line that creates the virtual machine. And this takes a little while. Oh, I have to say, yeah, because I'm in debug mode. I'm going to just approve everything.
So in your parameters, you gave EasyVM, it's a template of the VM, or it's a new name of the VM?
Which one?
Second parameter.
Name. Yeah, that's the name of the VM. So when I come into the portal and look for it, I'll see it here. Good night. All right, so yeah, I'll see that over here. Virtual machines here. It'll show up here in this list. By the way, I'm going to stop these because I'm paying for those. All right.
I left mine on whenever I was learning Azure. And I left a premium VM on, and let me tell you, the amount of money that racked up, it was a lot. I have to call Microsoft and be like, this was an honest mistake. It's like $170.
Oh gosh.
Are they cool about it?
Huh?
Are they cool about it?
Yeah, I mean, I told them I was just testing it out because I was bringing it into our company. But yeah, I was like, holy crap, is that?
Be careful. Yes. There's tools, by the way, to help you with that.
Well, at the time, I had no idea what it was doing. No, I mean, a billing limit. Right.
You know what? I think you just have to make that mistake once.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Actually, when I wrote my own credit card in there, I was like...
Ask Cecilia how much she spent for the data warehouse she spun up the other day. Ask her about her data warehouse cost. She's in the hallway. She won't like me that I told you that. Yeah, it was a call like that. You just go, please, don't charge me. Please don't call me. So anyway, this is going to take a while, but it showed me how to create the VM. And I want this to be faster than it is. So I'll just talk about what's going to happen next. So it creates the VM. One of the properties from this object here, this new VM, property will have a fully qualified domain name because I defined it with a public address, a public IP address, and I told it to open up port 3389, okay, which is great for this. I mean, you're probably not going to do things that way once you go to production. You probably want to set it so that you can only get it over a VPN or from a restricted IP address. But for testing like this is fantastic because I can run this command, and once it's actually done, I should be able to run MSTSC. That's the command executable for remote desktop. /v will point to this. And it'll connect, once I'm done here, I'm going to connect to this. So I'll leave off the next thing to you. AZ Monitor shows you how to look at the look at some of the logs, like the activity monitor. So when you make changes in your Azure account, it's logging things that you've done. And so AZ Monitor shows you how to look at that. And then the cleanup file will delete the resource group. So if you play with this, make sure you delete the resource group when you're done. Oh, it looks like it finished or got something done. But again, I added the debug here. This is fascinating to me. I don't understand most of this, but it's fascinating to me that behind this, okay, actually, where was the command? Yeah, behind this, I scrolled, is all of these API calls, all these REST API calls. So this is causing all of this. And some of you guys actually understand what this is doing. All right, I think it's done. And I'll do one more demo and we're done. So if I go back to here, I should now see there's my VM3. All right, can I connect to it? There it is. So here's my fully qualified domain name of this. If I highlight this, there's my domain name. Oh, something's wrong with the screen here. All right, and I'm going to connect to it. Oh, my security credentials are over here. I forgot my password. Let's see if it's, what was it, super secret? I forgot my password. Let's go back to here. This one here. There it is.
How can you forget that password?
I forgot. I trusted the vault to remember it for me. All right, I should have to remember. All right. All right, and then there's my connection. Oh no, what happened there? Huh.
Well, that I know.
Huh, it changes the size. Let me try this.
Playing around with SharePoint, but I haven't used PowerShell to do.
There's my new connection. All right. All right. Questions about that stuff?
So I want to be able to essentially, theoretically speaking, organize a bunch of files based on certain keywords on the online train model. But I'm not sure how that would work.
I'd like to look at that with you. There's a couple tools you want to play with, and just go through like the example or like the getting started and say, okay, how does this work? What are the features? What are the knobs? I'll look at that with you. There's some neat stuff with cognitive services. So anyway, so that's opening up. Here's a bunch of different resources. It's all on GitHub. I'll hang around and thank you guys for listening.